now present For the Record with Neil Heinen.
One last kick at 2019 and a few thoughts about what's ahead. That's next on For the Record. Thanks for joining us. I'm Neil Heinen. We are believers in the value of reflection and planning, the two actions between which we hopefully live in the moment. Looking back, 2019 seems a fitting conclusion to a wild decade. Looking ahead, there's something undeniably appealing about even saying it's 2020. I welcome back to For the Record three people who are smart thinkers about this kind of stuff. Karen Lincoln Michel, the publisher of Madison magazine as we record this, the former publisher as you watch it. More on that later. And our colleagues Scott Milfred, the editorial page editor of the Wisconsin State Journal, and John Gramling, the publisher and editor of the capital city Hues. Happy New Year, everybody.
Good New Year to you.
That's a tease, Karen. We'll keep people wondering.
I got it. Okay.
So, you know, I was kind of taken, I hadn't thought about it, but in a lot of the reviews of the year, the traditional reviews of the year that go on, there was talk about the decade, and I don't think we've often done that. I think there was something about this decade that really struck people. Can we look at it through a 10-year lens, Karen?
Yeah, sure. Well, I started off the first part of the decade not being in Madison.
Right.
And so I had the benefit of, moving away and then coming back. And one of the things that really struck me was the fact that before I left, there really wasn't much talk about diversity in the community. But then when I came back, there was, of course, the Race to Equity report that had come out that showed the disparities between blacks and whites in the community in different categories. That, and then my first month on the magazine was a cover story about Tony Robinson. Right. And so if you mention that name in Madison, people have a reaction to that. And so it's this tragic shooting of an unarmed African-American man. And so that, I think, just really escalated the dialogue that was happening about race. And I wondered if this is really something that is going to last, have some kind of lasting impact. And in some respects, I think it has, but in others, I think there's still a long way to go. So that was sort of my look back.
It's an interesting perspective. I mean, John, you've been here for decades and decades. Yeah. And did it feel different to you?
Well, I just wanted to say we began the decade with President Barack Obama, this kind, gentler man who married, loved his wife and everything, and then we end the decade with President Trump, twice divorced, amongst other things, and Wisconsin voted for both of them. So, I mean, that just really shows you a lot about Wisconsin. I think there's a lot of staying power right now, in part because I think the decade saw the rise, especially the last 3 or 4 years, the rise in candidates of color running for local office in Madison. So we've seen the expansion on the school board and the aldermanic districts. We have Sheila Stubbs, who's our first state rep from Dane County to state government. So, and that will contribute to the staying power as people get in. Our new superintendent will be a superintendent of color. The 3 finalists are of color. So now we're starting to see people get into decision-making places where they can bring it up, and where I think it'll be a part of the dialogue.
Right, and that's the key to change, I think, too, is having people of color in decision-making roles.
When I think about it, Scott, for me, looking back at 19, the resignation of Police Chief Koval and Superintendent Jen Cheatham really struck out to me. Not because people in those positions don't resign, they do, but it seemed both of them occurred during a time when there was really big civic conversations about public safety, law enforcement, and the relationship between law enforcement and the community and the schools, and some tension within the schools. And that seems to me, kind of the end of a 10-year conversation and the beginning of another much bigger one.
Yeah, and Police Chief Koval, as much as he is probably one of the most progressive and innovative police chiefs in the country, in a lot of ways was painted in Madison as sort of the pro-cop, hard-edged cop, somewhat because of his language that he used. He was a little prickly, but he was really a Madison police chief who walked the communities, who believed in community policing. But I think with him gone, you are going to probably see candidates who are not white men for police chief.
Right.
Again, as far as the broader issue of policing in Madison, I think there's two loud camps. I think there's a camp that, you know, no matter what the police do, there's going to be suspicion, and there's a camp that no matter what the police do, they're going to be criticized. They're going to think that they did it right. And in the middle, I think most of us know that the Madison police do a pretty good job and are trying to get better. I think there's two other leaders, though, that you got to mention on your list there. One is in the governor's office, and one is in the mayor's office. And
Absolutely.
Tony Evers and Satya Rhodes Conway, one interesting thing about them that I've been struck by in the last year is how understated yet relatively effective their leadership has been. Tony Evers, okay, he swears once in a while, he uses naughty language, but generally he's just a laid-back Wisconsin guy. He's not going to run for president. He's just trying to do his best, and he's against a very political Republican legislature, but you know, he got two of the big things he wanted in the budget, which was more money for schools, and he wanted more money for roads. Now, he didn't get it the way he wanted, and he didn't get as much as he wanted, but he got that. And I think when you look at the city level, Satya Rhodes Conway comes in as a very progressive leader, but she didn't come in to try to change the city in one day. She was very focused in what she wanted to get done, which is better buses and more affordable housing, and I think she made advances there.
Yeah.
And speaking of the governors, now it seems like in a very radical way we're almost seeing a shift in the nature of our state government, in the sense of the Republican leadership now almost seems it should supervise the secretaries of the different departments by not appointing them right away, not approving their nomination, criticizing their performance and things like that. In one case, one person had to leave. There's rumors of another person having to leave. And so I think they're just radically shifting the power basis of government and how we normally saw state government operate.
Yeah.
Right, and when we saw that there was going to be, you know, a new governor and a new mayor in Madison, I was kind of thinking there'd be maybe a lot more change, and I think it's been gradual. So that kind of surprised me.
Shifting gears here completely, but something we've become increasingly accustomed to, the weather has been bigger news, I think, more and more. And last year, Madison Magazine had a cover story on climate change, and it is becoming a bigger story all the time.
That's so true. And when we decided what was going to be on the content calendar for 2019, in 2018, right. You know, we talked about climate change and how that was going to be a big driver. And then, of course, there were the floods that we had in 2018, and so that was another motivating factor. So we're just seeing a lot of that, and I think with the national and then international focus on climate change, I think it's more of a open dialogue that we're having here in Madison.
I think if President Trump lost this fall, you'd see a lot more Republicans speaking out about the need to do something. People like Representative Gallagher up in Green Bay, who I think is on the Citizens Caucus, they call it, in Congress. Yep. There's a lot more, I think, bipartisan agreement that more must be done to accelerate clean energy and probably do some sort of carbon fee and rebate, right. to steer our economy in the right direction. And even if Donald Trump is reelected, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of his term he's claiming victory and saying he was for doing something about climate change all along, because the public is just really moving on this fast.
And I would say, again, a decade's trend with gerrymandering, with a lot of big money coming in to even local, national elections, and how that steers the national debate about climate change and what people are, with the resurgence of the coal industry and all this other kind of stuff, is we got to be reminded again about these dramatic changes in our democracy and how they've impacted issues that 80% of the public agrees with and should do, and yet nothing is done about it.
And so the question is, how does that influence people's perceptions of 2020 moving forward? And what are the stories you're going to be watching? And we're going to be talking about that with our panel when we come back right after this.
For the Record, sponsored by MG&E, your community energy company.
At U.S. Cellular, we know you work hard, so we work hard to give you the best deals. like a free smartphone when you switch, plus unlimited data for $30 per month. So you can keep streaming, keep posting, keep hustling, and keep more of what you've earned. Switch to US Cellular and get a free smartphone, plus unlimited data for $30 per month. Now that's fair. US Cellular. Choose fair.
Whether it's a night out with friends or a much-needed date night, Madison Magazine's Restaurant Week is the perfect time to gather with those you love around a fabulous meal from January 19th to the 24th. You can enjoy 50 great restaurants all serving delicious 3-course meals beginning at only $25. It's cold outside, so grab a table and let the flavors of Restaurant Week heat you up. Cheers! For a list of participating restaurants and menus, visit MadisonRestaurantWeek.com.
Ghost stories, sleepovers, afternoon naps. Some things are just better with a toasty, warm blanket. That's why News 3 Now and St. Vincent de Paul are collecting new and gently used blankets for our neighbors in need. Please drop them off at a Dane County St. Vincent de Paul store or participating area churches the last weekend in January. Thanks in advance for helping us keep area families warm this winter.
Sometimes, one moment changes everything. One song, one game, one adventure, one mission. For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. You can transform lives one wish at a time. Support Make-A-Wish and help grant more life-changing wishes. Learn more at wish.org.
I am back with Karen Lincoln Michel, the publisher and editor of Madison Magazine, Scott Milfred, the editorial page editor at the Wisconsin State Journal, and John Gramling, the publisher and editor of the Capital City Hues. And we were talking about 2019 and 2020. I mean, obvious question, John, but looking ahead to the new year, I mean, what are the stories you're going to be keeping an eye on?
Well, I think one of the big stories is going to be the school board race coming up. That there are 2, possibly 3 different candidates of color again running for the school board. Wayne Strong is going to give it another try. We have Savion Castro, who's going to try to win the seat that he was appointed to. So we have a majority-minority school district in terms of the student population, and now it's almost guaranteed we'll have a majority-minority school board that'll be helping to direct the policy because we have some big issues, not only with the new superintendent that they're going to select, but also the school referendum is huge this fall in terms of how our schools are going to look and how competitive they are going to be with the suburban schools, that the future of the school district, in my humble opinion, is really on the line with these 2 things going on this year.
Yeah, Scott.
Coincidentally, Tuesday I'm going to be in Milwaukee for a walkthrough at the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
That's already gearing up. And I think that's going to be an even bigger deal for Wisconsin than the Wisconsin primary. The Wisconsin primary comes around in April. In all likelihood, there's going to be at least a few candidates running, and our vote is going to matter on the Democratic side because there'll be a lot of competition. But that convention in, I believe it's July in Milwaukee, is a big deal, not just because it's the Democrats putting a flag down and saying we're going to take back Wisconsin. It's also because when Trump won the last time, a lot of the attention went to the rural areas swinging from supporting, a majority anyway, Obama to Trump, that there was a swing in rural areas. But another huge factor was that voting in Milwaukee was not as significant as it had been. Hillary Clinton, who didn't come to Wisconsin, and there's a lot of tension on that, during the general election, she did not get as many votes as Obama did in Milwaukee. And so they really need Milwaukee. They need that vote surge in Milwaukee, and one of the ways they're going to do it is to have their candidate right there in Milwaukee a few months before the election.
Well, I would agree with that, and Madison Magazine is doing a cover story on, you know, the influence of Wisconsin in the race, and then having it coincide with the convention being in Milwaukee, which is a big thing. And I think it's also big for Madison too, because there's going to be, you know, people coming here as well, sort of an overflow from Milwaukee. But still, I think it's going to be a big talker in Wisconsin, and what, you know, the ramifications are for the election.
And there's also talk about who the vice presidential nominee might be, and that Joe Biden said that he would nominate President Obama to the Supreme Court. So there are all these other side things that will also be going on in July that could impact the voter turnout here in Wisconsin.
Any others? Go ahead, Scott.
Mentioned only on the periphery a bit. Tammy Baldwin, possible VP choice. She won big in Wisconsin. Probably not going to happen, but never know.
Yeah.
Paul Ryan got on the ticket, so that's another possibility.
Wisconsin, I mean, Wisconsin is that important nationally that we've got that kind of pull. Are there civic issues that you're watching, Karen, in the year, in the city or the state?
Well, I think we've talked about some of them. Of course, you know, with the schools, new superintendent, that's going to be something to watch. You know, there have been a lot of things happening on, you know, the school front, and, you know, even national attention on the incident with the, with Marlon Anderson, his security.
The language stuff,
Right, and so I'm looking to that race, and we've kind of gone over that.
You know, I think one of the best stories in 2019 was the opening of Madison College's Goodman campus. I mean, that was a huge deal for this community. I think its impact is going to be felt for a long, long time. It just was a very strategic piece in the development of this community. And then I think in 2020, if we see the kind of progress that we might see around the Oscar Mayer campus redevelopment, and maybe Alliant Energy, you know, both of those have huge potential. Alliant in sort of partnership with what's going on the South Side and Park Street. And then Oscars would be a whole new neighborhood for this community.
One other issue that we've been focusing on a lot, not just on the editorial board, but in our newspaper, is the homelessness issue. And what I think people have come to understand across the aisle is that the homeless issue isn't the guy with the paper bag and the booze on State Street. Yes, those people exist, but people understand now it's a lot of kids, often with a single mom, and the mom's working, but they just can't afford housing, particularly in a place like Madison. And there's several bills that have cleared the Republican Assembly. We're on the editorial board, we're pressuring the Senate to finally pass those. The money's in the budget. It would do a lot of things, not just pay for more affordable housing, but help, for example, landlords to upgrade and fix up some of their property so that it's more rentable. So that's definitely something I'm going to be watching carefully.
Is there any explanation that makes any sense why Fitzgerald won't let that bipartisan package through?
What we are told is that the Senate majority has a rule about 17 votes, that he needs 17 Republican votes, not just generally votes in the Senate, before he'll even let a bill go. That means you can only have 2 or 3 hold it up, and there are 2 or 3 holding it up, and I think they're not well versed on it, and they just think, we're throwing money at it. Not sort of realizing that all of this came out of a huge study under the Walker administration, and Rebecca Clayfish pushing it, and with big champions in the Assembly like Representative Steineke. So it is a bipartisan thing, and we don't spend near as much as Minnesota. I know money's not everything, but there's a lot of innovation going up there that we're trying to do here. It's best practices.
One, not only for this year, but in years to come, will Madison become another San Francisco, in which it's the center of IT and a lot of innovative industry and things like that, but that because of that and because it's attractive to millennials and other folks, that will people get crowded out and then have to start moving to the suburbs to find affordable housing even.
And that's some of the rural-urban debate. Is Madison's economy is doing incredibly well, and people see that across the state. Rural economy, not so well, particularly farming and even manufacturing has struggled some.
You know, we've been watching that for a while now, and I guess my assumption was that the millennials were so intuitively inclusive. They insisted on diversity as a generation, that was going to maybe, you know, make San Francisco not quite so possible. I haven't seen it happening yet. I do think it's worrisome.
Well, there's a little bit of, in terms of racial, cultural diversity, that's there amongst the millennials, but I'm sure a lot of the millennials didn't grow up with poor folks. We are so stratified of a society as it relates to income, that they might not even have the experience, although the schools are more integrated than they were when we were growing up.
Well, when we come back, we're going to maybe take a little bit look at the future of journalism and media when we say goodbye to Karen, Lick, and Michelle. And we're going to do that right after this.
These folks, they don't have time to go to the post office. They have businesses to grow, customers to care for, lives to get home to. They use Stamps.com. Print discounted postage for any letter, any package, anytime, right from your computer. All the amazing services of the post office, only cheaper. Get our special TV offer, a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com/deal and never go to the post office again.
Hi folks, Monday morning, Consumer Reports has a new warning out for women when it comes to car safety.
We'll tell you why crash safety ratings may have been wrong for years because women weren't being accurately represented.
That and more local news starting at 4:30.
See you then.
The officer involved in a fatal shooting that shook our community. Now he's leading a mindful movement for police recruits.
People ask me, how am I still here? Well, this is how, this practice.
He talks about his personal journey and their mission. Monday at 10, only on News 3 Now.
Have a great night and do something good. I started saying it because I was just so tired of all the bad news in the world. People are out there doing great things. I've experienced it, and believe me, it can change your day. Tell us about the good you see. Go to Channel 3000 or post it using the hashtag #DoSomethingGood.
I'll share your stories on News 3 Now.
Our community is full of wonderful, giving people. Let's celebrate them together. Let's do something good.
Download the new Channel 3000 app and get alerted on your mobile device the minute news breaks. Wherever you go, be the first to know with Channel 3000.
Nothing hurts my mom, but she showed anyway. We were trained to help others, but there's strength in finding help for yourself too. We're in this together. Even the toughest of us might not know where to go to get a little support.
The VA Women Veterans Call Center connects veterans with personalized information on VA services that can make a difference. Call 1-855-VA-WOMEN or visit www.womenshealth.va.gov.
So John Gramling and Scott Milfred join me for just the last couple of thoughts. We actually do have a new president in our midst already, Karen, Lick, and Michel, who after 5 years as editor and then publisher and editor of Madison magazine, and it's been a terrific 5 years, is leaving to be president of Indian Country Today. Talk about that, Karen. What's the new job?
Well, it's a nonprofit journalism startup that's based at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University. It started out decades ago as a newspaper in South Dakota, and then some time ago the Oneida Nation of New York purchased it, and then in the last year and a half or so it has become online only. And so, you know, with the digital revolution that we hear about, it has affected news organizations, and some of them have gone nonprofit as well. And then I also am part of the Wisconsin Center for Investigative Journalism, which also is a journalism nonprofit organization. So I'm really looking forward to working at a news organization that is primarily focused on covering indigenous communities, which that's why I got into journalism, was to cover communities of color, and so this is going to have an opportunity to do that.
You had a long career in journalism prior to coming to the magazine, mainly in newspaper journalism around the country. But 5 years of a city regional magazine, what of that time might you bring to your new job?
Oh my gosh, it's been really a great run here. Just working with a terrific crew of people who put out the magazine every month, and then the fun part about work that I've been doing here at the magazine is framing an issue, talking through what is important to the community, and really knowing who your readers are. So I'm going to be bringing that, some of that to the new job. But also on the business side, I've had the opportunity to really learn how, a news operation runs on the business side.
So Indian Country Today is an all-digital publication.
Yes, it is.
I need to go on the website and familiarize myself with it. But does it have the design elements? I mean, is it video? Are you going to be incorporating all of that into the?
Yeah, and that's on the editorial side. They do video. I'm going to be focused more on the business side. Right.
What kind of a team staff do you have there?
Well, it's a growing staff. There's, the editor, Mark Trahant, who is a veteran journalist, and then he has a staff of people. There's also going to be the television side of it. They're in talks with PBS on doing a program that's geared just toward Native people.
Right. Well, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thanks
I mean, it's very prestigious.
Thank you so much.
And still another year of print for both of you gentlemen.
Oh, yeah.
With digital elements to
We're
be
on
sure.
every platform.
Right.
But always print. You see, and especially for the Hues, it's important to be there, out in the stands, so that people see people of color out in the stands where they go and engage in the libraries and things like that. So it's as much a part of a mission as it is a commitment to print.
Of course. Well, let's have a good year, shall we?
We will.
Thanks very much. We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this.